Alright, so we're back on the camera boom, and this is going to be the second installment of it. And I think on this one we're going to make a drawing, but not necessarily make a drawing per se. We're actually going to make templates to make this a little easier to produce. And before we do that, I did find where my mistake was in that little hot shoe cut, and it is going to be right here. And what I didn't do was actually right here, there's supposed to be an offset. From here to here should be 1.7 inches. So let's just change, actually, yeah, let's get rid of these. So just right click, drag, and delete. Right click, drag, and delete. And let's start here. We are going to need to be right here. We're going to have to come out a little bit longer here. And right here we'll leave a kind of gap. That line is going to be our gap. So that we can come here and smart dimension from here to here is going to be that 1.7 divided by 2 like we did on the other side. And now from here to here, this is going to be our 60 degree. And that, hang on, this is going to be, lock was off, our 60, and that looks much better. So now let's go ahead and mirror about first, because I'm a nerd. And that looks excellent. And exit sketch, and it should, but it is not happy. Let's go ahead and ignore that error, because that is going to be right here, which, let's edit the sketch for this, and we can see here that it's not happy about this point and this point. That's why they're green. So we can just click that point, delete this, and then we'll click on this new line, and it's already on point, midpoint. Okay, check. And let's do the same thing here. Let's get rid of this. Hold down Control, midpoint again, and that's going to lead to a happy sketch. Perfect. Okay, so now what I would like to do is get out of Edit Component, and let's go ahead and make drawing from assembly. We can use either one of these. Mac-A Sheet is just my custom format. And what we'll do here is we'll take this view, I think is going to be the one we need, and this view. And then let's click on Properties, Sheet Properties. And right here in Scale, we want to have a 1:1 scale, because we want full-size templates of this. And so now let's see if it will allow me to hide this part. Show hide component. Perfect. And let's do the same thing with this one. Show hide component. And let's do the same thing with that one. Now let's go into our drawing view, our assembly, our main block, and what I want to show is this sketch here, I think, because this is going to give me a nice center mark. This one too. Let's click on this view. That wasn't it. Which one is it? It's this one. It's got to be this one. Okay, so it doesn't want to do that one. That's okay though. Alright, let's hide this component. Okay. So now what the plan is, I'm not going to dimension these or anything, but I will print them out full scale, and I'm going to cut this with scissors and tape it to my blank, my material blank, and I'm going to actually use the bandsaw and I'm going to cut this edge and this edge, and well, first I'm going to actually drill my hole, and then I'm going to come in right here, I'm going to cut my little slot, and that should be I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I think that'll be the simplest way to do it. We may run into a little bit of an issue whenever we come to do this side because there is going to be a void under it, but I think that we can work around that. So with that, let's print current sheet. Let's go to properties, make sure I have a little predefined blueprints settings here, and we'll go ahead and print that. And that should be pretty much it. Alright, so I've printed out a full-scale drawing of the main block, and I've got this in PDF form, and my plan is to put a link to both this drawing and a full set of drawings for the entire camera boom in my video description, probably in this video. And that way anybody that wants to build this, you can print these out and you can build it. And the reason that I have this one separate, the other one is just a single sheet and it's got everything else on it with dimensions, is that I want this full-scale drawing to be able to actually cut it out, and I'm going to tape it onto my blank material. And that way I don't have to do any line drawings or anything like that. I've got little reference lines in here for the centers of all the holes and things like that, so that anybody who wants to build this, it's going to be as easy as I can make it for you to build it. Now, I did notice for some reason, I'm not sure if it's the PDF or the printer or whatever, these are a tiny bit underscale. I'm about 1/8 of an inch short this way and about 3/16 short this way. I don't think that's going to be at all critical and affect any measurements really. What I think I'm going to do is actually use this bottom line to line up with the bottom of my block, and then just kind of center it in the block. Also, the block is not precisely 2x2, so I'm going to have to kind of, meet in the middle anyways, and so it's not going to make any difference. Let me go ahead and get these cut out and taped on. Alright, so this is our blank just before cutting. You can see that I have on 3 sides, I've got my templates taped on there. The tape might be making a little bit of a glare, but hopefully you can see here that I've got a little bit of a gap on my blank because I aligned the little hot shoe layout with the bottom, and I've got a tiny little gap on each side. On the actual bottom of the blank here, I have just the hole layout for that drill and tap, and on this side I've got the hole layout for this drill and tap, and this is actually going to be a through hole drill, and then there's only going to be a drill and tap in this section here. And so right now what I'm going to do is, because this is Delrin, it's really soft, so all I need to do to punch these holes is I find my intersection of my little sketch lines, and I'm just going to use a little pick and I'm just going to push. And I want to do all of these first, because number one, it's just easier. It's right here. I can already do it. And number two, it makes fixed reference points for me. So if for some reason I'm cutting this and this template for some reason gets tore up, or this template I'm really not worried about anymore, because the only reason I need that is to show me where this hole goes. And if this one gets tore up, well, now I can just rip it off, put a new one, and make sure that my bottom lines up and this hole, and everything's good to go. So this is ready for drilling. Alright, so I think I've already mentioned, before we actually go cutting on this, I'm going to drill these holes first. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start, I am going to use helicoil inserts for these. And I'm going to drill this hole first, and I'm going to drill it all the way through. Because using the helicoils, you use a larger drill bit than is the actual nominal size of the threads. So it's going to take a little bit more than a 1/4 inch bit for this. So that gives me the added bonus of I don't have to come back and upsize the bit that's going to come from this way. It's already going to be able to take my 1/4 inch bolt, and then the helicoil is going to be on this side, so that's not going to be a problem. Then I'm going to use the same thing on the bottom, and I'm also going to pre-drill this center hole with that same size drill bit, just because I want to use it a little bit smaller bit to help me guide it and keep it nice and square. I'm not going to do this on a drill press. I'm going to just freehand it in a vise, and then I'm going to come back with my 5/8 bit. Now once I've got my holes drilled, I'm not going to tap this. I'm going to save tapping for the last complete step. So once we've got this hole drilled and the other two, I'm going to go to my bandsaw and I'm going to cut this groove first, which actually I went with 1/8 right here. This is probably going to end up being a double pass. I think our bandsaw blades are actually thinner than I thought they were. And then we're going to come back, and if this is going to be my bandsaw blade, you know, the vertical blade, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut into here, and then I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to cut into here just like I'm going to finish the notch, but I'm going to stop just a little bit shy because I want this material to stay here. Reason being is that if I cut this entire section off, and I cut this entire section off, and then I roll this over, then I'm going to have destroyed part of this template. So I want to just have a little bit of that material there, just so where I have a complete template all the way around. And then once I have that, once I have everything cut and I've only got those little bitty strips left, I'll come back and start cutting those. Alright, so unfortunately they're working out in the shop right now, so I don't want to go out there and cut this with metal flying everywhere and mess my camera up. So you won't be able to see the actual cutting, but I think that I've demonstrated pretty well the concept behind it. So I'm going to go out there and get to it. Okay, so here's the final product minus the edge finishes. I'm debating on whether or not I actually want to come back and router all these, or maybe just take it to a belt sander and just kind of touch those edges up. The helicoil inserts look like they're going to work out great. The hot shoe mount, I have tested it on the tripod and it works amazing. It's a little bit snug, but I mean that's absolutely fine with me. There's also the helicoil insert in the bottom, but I'm really impressed with the way that this hot shoe came out. Now, a note on this hole size. The stock diameter of the rod is actually a little bit more than 0.625. So once I had this slot cut, what I actually had to do, and after I tapped it, was I actually had to force the rod in there, and it was very, very tight to get in. So I came up with kind of a little idea that really worked well. And what I did was I took my clamp screw here and I screwed it in, and I left it kind of loose, and I actually put my drill bit back in the hole, and this was still locked on the vise, so it was nice and solid. And I actually tightened it up until the drill bit got kind of binded in. Not a whole lot, but just a little bit. And then I would actually spin the bit with the drill to just waddle that hole out just a little bit. And I did that a few times. Each time I would do it, I would feel the rod. And now, if you take the rod, it's very, very easy to slide the rod in and out. It has a little tiny bit of resistance, but nothing that's, you know, it's not a really hard force. And I think that that's a really good fit, because all I have to do now is just barely snug this up,
and it won't move. In fact, a lot of the times I may not even really snug this down because it just seems like it's that perfect of a fit. Alright, while we're talking about the rod, here it is. It's kind of hard to get it on screen, so I'll just kind of show you one end at a time. Okay, so here is the pivoting end of the rod. What I did to lay this out, I didn't do anything really precise. I actually clamped it in a vise to where the jaws were grabbing, just about at the halfway mark of the rod, and I made sure that it was fairly level or parallel with the top of the jaws, and then I just drew 2 lines and then another one across, and went to the bandsaw and cut my vertical and my horizontal line just like that. And then I came back on this face and I marked and drilled and tapped that in. On the opposite end, you can see where I have an all-thread rod actually threaded into this. I think I went about 3/4 of an inch deep with it, and then I grabbed it with a pair of pliers all the way at the end right here, really close, and just tightened it down a little bit. It's a little bit past finger tight right now, and this is going to serve as a counterweight mount. And what I'm going to do is I have a bunch of these regular steel rings that I had cut, and they weigh roughly about 1.5 pounds, and they'll slide on. And what I can do is stack however many I need to kind of balance the camera. And then I have another one of these little knobs, but it has a nut in it instead of a bolt. And once I put however many I need on there, I can just take this and cinch it down, and it'll go all the way down that rod and just snug it up so that the weights can't come off. And I think this is a really good system. I guess the one downfall of it is that I do have to, figure out, I gotta keep a bunch of these things stored, but, I don't think that's a big deal. I don't go out in the field much, so I'm just gonna have these kind of on the side of my bench. But I think this is gonna be a really good system. Alright, so here is the camera mount, the pivoting camera mount. And I've changed a few things from the drawing. You can see here I actually have 2 holes in it, and one of those is going to be to allow it to pivot, so whenever it's screwed into this hole it can pivot and I can lock it down. And the other one is closer to the middle, because if I put it all the way to the back and bolt that in, then it's actually going to act like a square stop, so that it can't pivot, and it's going to hold this exactly perpendicular to the rod. I don't know if it'll ever really come in handy, but I feel like it's too simple to put it on not to do it. Also, there's kind of a little similar theory on the actual camera interface itself. There's a hole directly in the middle, and then one that's a little further out to the edge. I don't really know why I did that, but it seemed like the thing to do. I've also solved my problem of keeping this bolt captive, and also gave my camera a pad to sit on instead of going straight up against that aluminum. This is just 1/8 rubber that I actually super glued. And if you do this and you're going to use super glue, you have to get a pretty rough grit sandpaper and actually prep the surface of the aluminum first, because the super glue won't stick to it otherwise. Even now I've got a little bit of peeling there, but I think I'll be okay with that. And then I actually came through and drilled these holes in the aluminum and the rubber. If any of you have ever drilled rubber, you know that this happens. But drilling a 5/16 hole in rubber, or rather using a 5/16 bit in rubber, is not going to result in a 5/16 hole. It's actually going to be much smaller. And I've taken advantage of that, in that whenever I screw my bolt in, you can see that it holds it. Now it does make it difficult to turn, and I don't have the clearance to put a knob in there, so I'm still trying to figure that out. I may try to get a little small wing bolt for this, or possibly even have one of the guys in the shop weld me a little T on top of this one. But I really don't think that's going to be much of an issue for me. I'd much rather have my pivoting and my slides be on knobs, because I think those are the ones that I'm going to adjust a lot. By the way, the bolt sizes for this, I don't think I have those on the drawing, but for the camera mount, this is a 1/2 inch by 1/4 20. For the pivot mount to the rod is a 3/4 inch 1/4 20. And for the actual main block, the clamping bolt, that is a 2-inch 1/4 20. These knobs, I got them off of Amazon. Just search bolt knobs or something like that, and it should pop it right up. And you can pretty much pick whatever you like. I kind of like these, but they are a little large. And let's go ahead and we'll just put 3 counterweights right now. Alright, so this is completely assembled. I'm gonna turn the camera off, take it off the tripod, put it on here, and assemble that, and then probably use my phone to video the rest of this. Alright, so I'm sorry about the messy background. I'm not the most organized person in the world. But you can kind of see here the final product. Let me see if I can get the entire thing in view. My tripod is actually not fully extended, and also the legs aren't fully opened. So you can kind of see the feet aren't as widespread. I don't have as large of a footprint as I normally would, which is a little bit better for testing it because it actually takes away some of the stability. I did go ahead and put all 6 counterweights on there. Not so much for stability but it did actually help that, but mainly because I want to try to take as much weight off of the hot shoe as I can and have it, as balanced as I can on there. And also this clamp here that lets it pivot, I don't want that to be in a huge bind either. But you can see that this is pretty much as extended as it can be, and it is very, very stable. It seems like everything's gonna hold up. The pivot is locked really well. I don't have it clamped down hard, and you can see that I can spin it pretty easily. You can see right here I still have a lot of take up, so I can cinch it down really hard if I need to and actually lock that rotation. It still wants to do it a little bit, but yeah, it takes a little bit of force to do it. So I mean, not 100% cinched down, but plenty enough for holding a camera. One more note on this hot shoe, it actually works out really, really well, but I've actually got it, which you would, I guess, consider backwards on the tripod, because I want this hook on this hot shoe to be in a compression state instead of it being pulled. Right now the entire backside of the hot shoe is actually engaged, and so this is a lot stronger point than pulling on this one little single point. So the handle does kind of impede a little bit on using it, but I don't think it'll be an issue, and I'd much rather do this than break it. Alright guys, that's going to be pretty much it for the camera boom. As I said before, I am going to have PDF files in the video description, so anybody who wants to build one can have the plans to do it, and the full scale little main block, and everything else is pretty simple. You can you don't really need too many templates for all that. I just thought that the main block was the sketchiest little one. But if you got any suggestions, guys, go ahead and comment below. I know that this might not work perfect for everyone, so if you want to change something on it, go ahead. And thanks for watching. I hope that anybody who makes this, it works out just as good for them as it will for me. Alright, so I couldn't let y'all go without giving some kind of little shot of what this thing is like in use. So here's what I think is an old MOSFET, and that looks readable. So I do like it. It does kind of impinge a little bit on my space under the bench, but I think for the few times that I'm going to need to do shots like this, I'm really going to like it. Now, thanks for watching, and don't forget like, subscribe, and share, and the video is actually over at this point.